Well, hey folks, for today's Mission Monday, it's actually Thursday, and this is being posted Monday, where we're talking about something that happened yesterday, which is Sunday, however that works. But anyways, this last Sunday, we had a bilingual service where we had English and Japanese spoken. We had translation, and I am assuming all things went according to plan. But I wanted to talk a little bit about why we did that and why we plan on doing more of those in the future. And the reason is pretty important. For you eagle-eyed observers, you might notice this Yoshino cherry tree right behind me. And Coug fans, I'm sorry, I am at the quad at the University of Washington. And for those of you who know what a Yoshino cherry tree is, you probably understand why we're shooting this video here today. These trees are actually from Japan. They came over, I want to say in the 1930s, so prior to World War II. And as they have grown, Japanese and U.S. relations have shifted over the years. You can imagine this massive war that took place just a number of years after these were planted. And maybe some of the thoughts of the people here as they looked out at these Japanese trees and all the things that were happening with the internment camps and the bitterness, the anger at the Japanese people persisted in America, and vice versa, right? I was thinking about that maybe a couple months ago. Julia, myself, our kids, and Andy and Hiro, they're moving down to Oregon. But Andy and Eva, we were touring the Museum of Flight down over by the airport, and we went through the World War II exhibit first, and we got to these incredible warplanes, and I started describing this plane to Thor, and just showing the little parts about the plane, and eventually got down to these things underneath the wings, and there's bombs, right? So, well, what's a bomb? It's like, are those things you throw in Terraria to blow up the ground? It's like, yeah. So what do they use the bombs here on this plane for? It's like, well, to blow people up. I probably could have handled the whole dialogue better, but it was embarrassing on behalf of the human race to have to describe to my descendant that we have put all this creativity into destroying each other and into killing the other, often just because of slights that grow and grow and grow, and the differences become a chasm, and that the chasm becomes violent, and to just tour through the exhibit and to see all of the intense creativity that people around the world were employing to just kill each other more effectively and inflict suffering on each other, and it was awkward touring it with the Japanese, who, you know, our ancestors would have been on opposing sides. They would have been trying to kill each other in this war, and to go through and listen to the rebroadcast of the atomic bombs being dropped, and just thinking, okay, well, what would have happened if we were back then? What would our reaction be then versus what it is now? So look at this cherry tree. This cherry tree has been here a really long time. It's lived through that war. I believe this one has, at least. And now, today, we are getting to enjoy fellowship with the Japanese as Americans. We get to enjoy awesome food. We enjoy each other just as people, and that's why we have these bilingual services, is because these are our brothers and sisters, and we are united by something a lot deeper than a shared bloodline, a shared ethnic heritage, a shared nationality, or anything like that. We're united by the blood of Christ, and it's a deeper bond than anything we can construct in this life. And And so why do we have these joint worship services? It's to promote unity. It's to foster shared understanding. It's to avoid what we did back in World War II and what we have continued to do over and over and over again throughout our entire human history. It's to avoid putting the other person into that category of other, that outsider, and to instead see that person as a brother, as a sister, as someone that we have a bond with, and doubly so within the body of Christ. Now, if you were there, you probably experienced a little bit of discomfort with the translation, right? It's more difficult, it's less enjoyable in some ways. And yet I anticipate you probably also experienced an intense beauty of taking communion with each other, of singing together, of kind of struggling a little bit together. There's a beauty in that. There's a beauty that you can't have unless you're with other people. And there's a common misconception that Christianity is just like this Western thing. It's this cultural artifact and it's gonna go away with the times. And the reality of the situation is Christianity is the most multicultural force that this world has ever seen. And it's primarily an Asian and African religion more so than a Western religion. It is something that spans across languages, across time, across ethnicities, across histories. It is an incredible multicultural force. And yet, another truth is also true. Christian churches are often the most segregated places in the world. We often do this thing where we lump together with people who look like us, talk like us, sound like us. It's called the homogeneous unit principle. You just put that phrase in your pocket. And it's really sad because Christianity is this great unifying force, and it was true at the very beginning, the founding of the church, where the Jews and Gentiles were struggling getting along, and they had to figure out how to do it. There was some pain with it, there was some discomfort, but it ended up working out in the long run. And we've had to go through this, all these different ethnic groups throughout the years, and it's always worth it. It's always worth it to put up with the other and see them not as the other, but as your brother and sister. So that's something we are trying to foster more of at our church. We've had a long history of Japanese ministry, and it has happened through English church, Japanese church partnership. And that needs to continue. It really does, and it has continued. It's birthed in some ways, sending the Frasers over to Japan. But there's more and more good work that can be done. There's this beautiful passage in the book of Isaiah, chapter 2, where the prophet Isaiah says, "In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths.' The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore." It's this beautiful picture of creation which has been unraveled through war and devastation and a coming back to unity. It's this vision of the world being restored, our relationships being restored, and ultimately this doesn't happen until the end, not, at least not fully, but the church is the sign of what is to come. And so as we worship together and as we participate in communal life together, we are a sign to the world around us of cultures coming back together, of people being restored, of relationships being mended, of people feeling like they don't need to treat other people as others, but as brothers and sisters. And so that's a little bit about what we're doing here with these bilingual services and why we'll be doing them more regularly. We'll see how often, but that's the plan. But anyways, that is it for Mission Monday this week. Thanks for taking a journey with me. And I'm sorry, Coug fans, if this just kind of bugged you a little bit too much, but I guess you got to deal with it. These cherry trees are awesome. So anyways, God bless you. See you next time. Bye-bye.